we've seen that as well, that inflation is pretty high. So with this 22, there's a table here that we have for fiscal year 23 and 22. The 184,412 that you see up there, that's the number that I quoted a little bit earlier that we are showing as a drop. We are showing somewhat of a little increase in our categorical fundings. And categorical fundings at the state means that that money can be spent only for certain categories. So our biggest increase is about a $540,000 increase in our special education funding. However, if you look at early intervention and teacher leadership and our ELL and at-risk, we are showing a slight reduction in funding from the current year. So what this means is that right now in the 21-22 year, our levy is $16.99 per $1,000 of valuation. We are looking at a levy that will actually drop about 74 cents to $16.25 per $1,000. The reason is because the enrollment decrease accounts for 40 cents out of that 74 cents. A reduction of the 1% guarantee is 14 cents. So what does that mean? So at the Department of Education, if you have enrollment at one level and it drops the next year, they give you a guaranteed 1% increase no matter what the level of funding is to allow you a year to kind of figure it out. And then they basically take it back the year after that. And that's the 14 cents that you see there. So between the budget guarantee and the decrease in enrollment, that accounts for 54 cents of the 74 cents. The other 20 cents is a balance due to the increase in property valuations in Pottawatomie County. And we have seen a decent increase in those property values, much to the angst of property tax owners in our county. This graph shows the property tax levy since the 2014-15 year and what it will be in the 22-23 year. So you can see that it's been relatively stable over those last few years as our enrollment has stayed stable. But as our enrollment has decreased, we're starting seeing the effects on the levy for that. This graph shows the state supplemental aid increase and trend line from 1974 all the way through next year. And you can see the trend line, the red line going down, shows that the state has been funding less and less as the years go by. And the 2% number, if you go back to the 2013 year, they've only given us more than 2% in 2013. They gave us 4%. And what that was a one-time deal. So what they did is they gave us 2% for state aid increase on the base, and then they just gave us another flat 2% that did not go on the base. So that was the 4% there. And then we've just been slightly above that as the years have gone by. And again, our costs are rapidly increasing above that rate. This shows our certified enrollment trend. You can see that from the 2012-13 year all the way through about the 19-20 year. COVID was in there, if you may recall that little thing. Our enrollment was staying relatively steady. It actually went up a little bit. But since COVID has hit, we have seen a drop in our enrollment. And that is to homeschool. We've seen families actually leave the state of Iowa and go to other states. Some have been enrolled in parochial schools. So we are seeing definitely a drop. I know that and we had a drop of about 425 students, I think, over the last 2 years. Des Moines, in 1 year, lost 1,000 students. So it's all over the state. It's just not Council Bluffs. I think all the urban education network school districts have seen sizable decreases in their enrollment. Our unspent authority. So as I've preached before, our unspent authority is the most important metric, and it's only for the general fund. It's the most important metric that school districts use, because if we do not have any authority to spend money, even though we have money in the bank, we can't spend it. So we are looking to project for this year to have anywhere between 9.5% and 10.5% of spending authority. What makes this difficult to project is the ESSER money that's flowing in, paying for some items, not paying for other items. But we're looking at probably a 9.5 to 10.5%. We ended the 21 year at about 9.4%. I think it's going to be close to that number, but we'll have to see. Projected for 22, 23, again, 9.5 to 10.5%, because we are looking at making some changes in certain areas that will help keep that spending rate down. And by the way, an increase in the levy, if we wanted to increase the levy from 1699 to another number somewhere in north of that, that will not add 1 cent of spending authority for us. So sometimes people just say, well, just get more money, raise the levy. That just doesn't work that way, because that's not counted by the Department of Education as spending authority. The solvency ratio, this is a ratio that indicates the district's ability to meet the current debt obligations. We are very healthy at about 12.44% as of June of 2021. ISB recommends a range of 5 to 10%, so we are above that. And this basically is for banks and such, that when we send out bonds, they look to see what our solvency ratio is, because they want to see, are you solvent enough to pay back the debt? And so to have a healthy solvency ratio really is key to financing bonds in the future. This is a very interesting graph. I started running this about 7, 8 years ago, and this is the 2021 taxable property valuation per student. And what I'm doing is I'm comparing the area school districts around here, which are much smaller than us, but it gives you kind of an apples to apples comparison to show how much property valuation do we have per student enrolled in our buildings. And as you can see on the graph there, where the yellow line there, we are the lowest taxable property value per student in the area. The state average is about $374,000. That's the red line that I showed, so we're well below the state average. And as you can see, most of the other school districts in our area are right at or exceed the state average. Our average is about $255,000, so that gives you a indication of how much less we are. If the district's property valuation per student was the state average, the levy would probably be anywhere from $10.50 to $11 per $1,000 of valuation. But our values are so low in our school district that we have to generate more cash by having a little higher levy. So the current levy, $16.99. We are proposing for your vote tonight a levy of $16.25 based upon the information I provided. And with that, I will ask if you had any questions.
Any questions from the board?
I guess I had a question. We were talking pre-COVID. You know, this was a different picture as far as unspent authority, and you know, I think we're somewhere on that, creeping down to that 5% range.
It was about 7-ish.
Solvency ratio. One of those was getting really low, I remember.
Yeah.
And we have ESSER funds through
23, 24.
24. And so we want, I mean, this is creeping up, which is good, but we're going to have to continue to creep that number up to then combat that drop-off at the end?
Yeah, at some point in time, that number will start to go back down, but there's ways that, there's ways that we can mitigate that. Number one is that I know some school districts go out 5 years and they project. I don't think that's worth anyone's time, because I don't know what state aid's going to be, and I don't know what enrollment's going to be. And those are the drivers. So I try to go out 2, maybe 3 years at the most to see, hey, here's where things are headed. But at some point in time, that will start to drop back down as we draw down those ESSER funds.
So without an increased enrollment, we'll have to kind of begin looking at that harder like we were.
Yes.
Planning.
Yes.
And I guess I might just have a question. So for the ESSER dollars, how much do we utilize against our normal, like how much should we offset in some of these normal
General fund.
expenses, general funds expenses with ESSER dollars?
So right now, currently, we have some staff that we've moved over into ESSER dollars because they allowed us to really have the freedom, which they would not call it supplanting. So we do have some that have moved over that are really focusing on the learning loss. And then also we have really, what it has freed up for us to be able to do the HVAC work and the things like that, and then also to begin to look at some of the other projects like our summer school. We planned out 3 more years of summer school, and summer school is about $700,000 a summer that we put into that. Another piece that Esther's going to provide some supplemental support for our early learning programs, and really being able to and pay for those, that offset of that 0.5 that's not covered by the state. So there's some really critical big pieces that they've allowed us to pick up and move into ESSER, which has freed up these dollars. But really focusing on using ESSER for those big maintenance issues, but also for areas of learning loss. It allowed us to put in the virtual academy and to move it to Crescent and make that a one-round school. So that was ESSER dollars that made that possible for at least 3 years.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I don't have any questions. More of a statement. I think it's wonderful that we're able to decrease the levy. But going back to your first slide, that 2% increase in state supplemental aid resulted in a $184,000 decrease in funding for us from last year. And we aren't the only district. In fact, I'm thinking most districts in Iowa are experiencing that same thing due to enrollment decline. And this is not a criticism of our state legislators. They have a very challenging job, and I appreciate what they do. But this is not something that we can continue to maintain long term, and it's more of an appeal, to our state representatives to reinvest in education in Iowa's public schools. Because behind all of these numbers and the levies and the decrease in funding is 9,000 kids and 650 teachers and custodians and support staff and food service workers and families. And we need to reinvest. This 2.5% is the highest in many years. And for us, it's $184,000 less than we got last year. And we can't continue on this trajectory, so. Thank you. And there is time on this public hearing for public participation on the budget or any other comments. I don't see any members of the public here tonight, so I will go ahead and close the public hearing. Now I'll call to order our workshop meeting of the Council Bluffs Community School District Board of Directors. Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Mr. Tripp?
Present.
Mr. Peters?
Present.
Ms. Myers?
Present.
Ms. Shudek?
Here.
Mr. Arthur?
Here.
Mr. Kazire?
Present.
Mr. LaFurla?
Present. Next, please join me in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next is approval of our agenda. Is there a motion?
Move approval of our agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And our agenda has been approved. And now we have approval of the minutes from our work session, as well as the regular business meetings of March 22nd, 2022. Is there a motion?
Motion the minutes of the work session and regular business meetings of March 22 of 22 be approved as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, and our minutes have been approved. Next up is public participation. As I mentioned before, we don't have any members of the public here, but did we have anybody request to speak? Great. So we'll move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Burlow?
Thank you, Mr. LaFurla. This evening, we're going to have Dr. Vorthman join me at the podium, and he's going to present on our 2022 Summer Learning Program, and just provide a preview of what's coming this summer and the great opportunities that our students will have. And also, Dr. Vorthman, if you would highlight how this is really incredible that Council Bluffs has a summer learning program, and let the new board members and our community know about that. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Merlo. It's my pleasure tonight to provide the board with some information about the summer learning programs we plan to provide for students starting at the conclusion of the school year. I want to take a few moments just to highlight kind of where we've been and why this is so important. As Dr. Merlo mentioned, summer learning in Council Bluffs is really kind of a neat opportunity that's not provided to students across the state of Iowa. And that's simply because there really is no state funding or no funding mechanism in the state of Iowa to provide learning to students outside of the school year. And so school districts that choose to provide some type of summer program have to do so either through grants or fundraising or have some type of joint partnership with another entity that can provide either the instruction or hire the teachers to provide the instruction. So we were one of the very few school districts in Iowa. This is actually our 14th year of having a summer program in Council Bluffs. And that was started way back with an initiative from the Iowa West Foundation that had started funding that program and continues to be one of the large sustainers of this program. As Dr. Merrill mentioned, we will be using ESSER dollars for the next couple of years because we have that federal funding stream that is specifically earmarked for programs such as summer learning because there's high efficacy around summer learning. And that's manifested in the quote here from the RAND Corporation and kind of echoed by the Wallace Foundation that really has found that high-quality summer learning programs really do have the opportunity to help close the achievement gap, especially for some of our most vulnerable learners. And that's why summer programming continues to be a very important priority in Council Bluffs schools. So this summer, we're offering a large menu again of opportunities for our students. And I'll highlight all of these individually here in a moment. But at our elementary program, we'll continue to have Camp Summer Explore, which is really focused on math and reading for our elementary students. We'll be continuing to partner with Kids and Company to provide both wraparound service and standalone childcare during the summer program. And then our extended school year program really is designed to meet the needs of students with special needs that have individualized learning programs that continue during the summer. At middle school, we will have our Camp Summer Explore program at the Henry Doorly Zoo. This is a long-term partnership between us and the zoo where we're able to have every day have our program actually at the zoo, and the zoo become the learning environment. It's a very unique opportunity that very few school districts have. We'll be initiating a math camp this year, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about, and then we'll continue to have extended school year at middle school as well. Our high school offering will provide students with opportunities to recover credit and to help them maintain their progress toward graduation, as well as their on-track work to D+1. That program also allows students who want to get ahead on credits to do so as well. We also offer the LIFT Freshman Transition Program, which provides students an opportunity to get kind of that jump start into what's high school going to be like, but also provides an opportunity to do some career exploration. And then our extended school year also reaches into the high school programs as well. So I'll first start with Camp Summer Explore. This is our longest running program, like I said, 14 years, with some initial seed funding and sustaining funding by the Iowa West Foundation. This program will be held this year at Bloomer Elementary School. We run that program 5 days a week, and it's a full-day program. It starts at 8:30, runs till 3. We provide transportation to all of our students to make sure they can get to the summer program, and we do that by providing what we call express stops, meaning if you can get to your neighborhood elementary school, we'll get you from there to Bloomer. Because most of our students are situated in neighborhood schools, it's really easy for most of them to have walking distance to be able to get to their resident elementary school, and we get them to and from Bloomer. We set what we call priority registration, which is we really target those students who are not quite proficient but are getting close to being proficient, and we save spots basically for them in the first weeks of registration to make sure that any student who needs that extra push during summer has some opportunity to get enrolled, and then after that we open it up to any student who would like to be part of the summer learning program. We focus really in on using that map data that we take 3 times a year to kind of guide who might need some additional time during the summer program. Currently, we are almost full. We over-enroll all of our programs. That's a strategy that we learned a couple of years ago as part of our evaluation system that we use. Every year, we have a third-party evaluator come in and give us feedback and look at our achievement from summer. That's through a partnership with the Iowa Reading Research Center, and they give us some good ideas, so we're always continuously trying to improve this program to make sure that it meets the needs of our learners and shows a return on investment. So we're currently about 100% enrolled. That we average about 70% attendance during summer. I'm sure you can imagine kids are pulled in many directions, and families are pulled in many directions for that matter during the summer. And so our attendance is not what it is during the school year, but we're happy to have students whenever they do come during the summer program. So in the morning, they have about 2.5 hours of math and reading instruction in the morning. We serve them breakfast when they come first thing in the morning, then we serve them lunch, and then they have an afternoon of elective or exploratory offerings. And the focus of those is to continue to build students' awareness and opportunities of what's available in our own community, in our backyard. And that includes field trips and exploratory opportunities to get out into our community with partnerships with like Sanders ATA, Lawrence and Gardens, Hitchcock Nature Center, 712 Initiative, just to name a few. Like I said earlier, we continue to benefit from the partnership of Kids and Company at the Council of Schools Foundation. Not only does the foundation and Kids and Company offer all-day childcare for students who need that from 6:15 a.m. to 6 p.m. At Hoover and Franklin, they also offer wraparound service, so before the summer program and after the summer program for kids who are enrolled at Bloomer. And that provides parents another opportunity if they have to work during the summer for students to be able to participate either in our summer program or in some of the enrichment opportunities that they have at Kids and Company during the summer. Our middle school program, like I mentioned, will continue to be housed at Henry Doorly Zoo. We kind of have the premier space at the zoo. There's other things going on for children in the zoo during the summer, but our students are at the new aquarium, which is kind of the Taj Mahal learning space. We've been very fortunate to be able to continue to have that space for our program. A couple of years ago, we shifted from a 6-week session to 2 3-week sessions, and then right before the pandemic, we shifted to 3 2-week sessions. And the motivation for that was to provide better access for students who weren't able to make such a large commitment of time, especially as students get into that age, 11, 12, 13. They have a lot of things going on during the summer, and sometimes they just want to go to the pool with their friends, or they have another sports camp, or they're actively involved in taking care of a sibling. So what this enables us to do is give students kind of that 2-week experience. And we do that program every day, provide transportation, breakfast and lunch, just like we do with the elementary program. And we're just about fully enrolled in that program. About 360 slots we have available, and we're just near 300 enrolled as of today. In this curriculum, what we try to do is basically the focus is it's science and our environment and nature. Obviously, we have a great place to do that at the zoo. But the lessons also incorporate social emotional learning. So especially want to reinforce in our middle school programs the importance of students making responsible decisions, interacting with each other respectfully, having good social awareness, and those types of things. And we do that kind of in a fun, relaxed setting during the summer. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch really during the summer program. And this really is, this is for all students. It's open enrollment, so there's no criteria. It's just any student who wants an enriching experience in grades, incoming 6th through 8th graders every year. Middle school math camp, this is a new opportunity that we're providing this year. As part of the work that we've done with our math consultant, we've been given the opportunity to have an immersive experience, not only for our students, but for our staff members, so both can learn during the summer. And so we have an opportunity for 30 students from each 6th, 7th, and 8th grade level who want to kind of sharpen their math skills over the summer. And for a team of teachers in middle school who also want to sharpen their skills over the summer and receive some really direct instruction from some really premier educators across the country will be coming to do the workshop with our teachers. They will team teach in the morning and use the afternoon for professional development. And then those teachers will then be able to take that learning back to their colleagues next year for professional development. So this is a real integrated experience. It's being funded with our ESSER dollars that we had talked about a little bit earlier. And the goal is to be able to bolster achievement in mathematics, obviously. Some work that we've been trying to do the last couple of years on increasing student achievement in math. And believe it or not, that program is almost full as well. We were a little worried that that might not be the most attractive thing for students, but we do have a significant number of students who are very interested in sharpening their math skills over the summer. So we're hopeful that we'll have that fully enrolled before the summer comes. And then lastly, I talked a little bit about our high school offerings. We've offered a credit recovery program for most of those 14 years. Obviously, the goal there is for students who need to earn a credit or maybe even a part of a credit as their progress toward graduation to be able to come in and do that. It's in a 3-week program. We work the mornings at Thomas Jefferson during the first 3 weeks in June. And that's really a partnership between the high school counselors and our summer team to make sure that we identify kids who need that little boost to get across the finish line, or students who maybe want another class or weren't able to get it into their schedule, or maybe they want to take an additional class so it frees up time next year. All those are viable opportunities for students at high school during the summer. And then we actually hold a summer graduation ceremony for those students who are seniors but needed a couple of credits to graduate. And so we'll do that again this year at Thomas Jefferson on the last day of summer school, June 24th. Our freshman transition program has been very successful over the past 5 years that we've offered it. Basically, this was a program that was developed through feedback, both from parents, students, and faculty members about the need to help bridge the gap between middle school and high school. And so this program has been expanded to be offered more frequently during the summer. So we have 3 different sessions that students can sign up for. They're week-long sessions. The morning is really about transitioning to high school, all the things that you need to know about being a high school student, from where's my locker to how do I get lunch to what should I expect on credits. What is a credit? How do I earn it? Those types of things that students may have some questions about, so that when they come to AL or TJ on day 1, they feel ready to learn. And that's really the goal of that program. That program is almost at capacity already. We have almost 150 students signed up. We also provide an opportunity in the afternoons then for students to start building that career awareness and thinking about what that pathway is going to look like for them. And we're working very hard this year to build in our pathways into that conversation so that students have a greater awareness of what's available in their own backyard, right here in Council Bluffs. One of the ways that we do that is we take them on site to places and make sure that they have an awareness of what's out there. That includes Iowa Western Community College. They spend time on the campus, they tour the campus, they look at the facilities, talk about the programs, and then talk about the connections that we have with our +1 pathways. As part of that project, and they have like a career portfolio basically that they've started, and then they receive elective credit for that. So they basically start ahead of their classmates by earning some high school credit that summer before their 9th grade year. Lastly, tonight, I'll talk about extended school year. Our extended school year program is ran with our special education team. This is a very specialized program that's available to students based on the recommendation of their IEP team. Really it focuses on skill development that those students need around their IEP goals to make sure that they don't have regression during the summer. And so those students are invited to a program. We have an elementary program that will run at Edison Elementary School the most of the month of July. And then our high school and middle school will be at Thomas Jefferson. And really we've kind of made an interdisciplinary emphasis to keep it fun and exciting for those kids as well. So they really focus on academic skill building, but also on social skill building and getting integrated into the community as well. So they take a lot of trips in the afternoons, work on this picture here. These students were working on using and counting money when they were going and buying shaved ice. It sounds like a fun opportunity. And really the students have an opportunity to see what's available to them in their community. So with that, I would welcome any questions from the board about our summer learning opportunities.
Questions from the board?
Could you remind us what LIFT stands for?
Yes. LIFT stands for Leveraging Youth for the Freshman Team. And so we have students that will come back and share their stories as well. That was created by Sandy Day, who was previous 21st Century Learning Coordinator, and Carly Gates came up with that cute little name several years ago. And 21st Century continues to provide funds for these programs as well. So it's a good partnership between 21st Century Learning Communities Grant, our federal dollars that we receive for both ESSER and Title, and then the Iowa West Foundation as well.
Any other questions? Lots of great opportunities for our students and families. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Borthman. And in case you didn't see the nonpareil, Dr. Borthman had a really good article in there you might want to check out that Mr. Johnson wrote for him. So thank you for doing that, Mr. Johnson. He will be missed. And now we have our informational presentation. Mr. Hamilton will be joining us to talk about student engagement and after-school activities. As you remember, we kind of included this in our Goal 4. And I don't really want to take away from the thunder of Mr. Hamilton's presentation because I'm pretty excited about it. And I'm excited also, he's going to kind of take you through kind of a high overview and then a deep dive into a couple of new athletic programs. I guess we call them athletics or
Yes.
activities, right?
Sure.
And then kind of let you know where you'll also hear another presentation by our athletic directors. But pretty excited about this. So, Mr. Hamilton, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Dr. Murillo on board. I am excited to be here tonight. I always enjoy talking about the fun things that we have going on to get kids really amped up to be in school. Like Dr. Murillo said, I'm going to hit high level just all of the activities that we have, programs that we have going on within the district, but I'm really going to focus on two tonight. You can see a picture up there on the left is our AL Esports team, one of our AL Esports teams that you actually recognized last month because they placed 5th in state. And on the right is our middle school girls wrestling program. Most of those are from Kern, but there's a few Wilson students mixed in there and a couple high school students that were there to help out. So I want to talk about those two in particular, but before we do that, let me just give you a little more information. So as Dr. Murillo stated, Goal 4 says that we ensure each student is supported and connected. The actual data point that we're looking at is by 2024, we want to have 75% of our secondary students participating in an extra or co-curricular activity. That includes 21st century clubs as well. There's lots of reasons for doing this. I just put 4 up there that I believe the district really looks at. It's improving academic performance, building teamwork skills, providing a sense of belonging for students, and finding new interests. Now, you can take my word for it, but I also want to provide you some data around it that I just did some quick looking. So if kids that are participating in after-school activities, before after-school activities, are 15%, have 15% higher attendance rates than those who don't. They're 3 times more likely to have a GPA of 3.0 or higher than those that don't. They reduce the probability of dropout by 40%. Those who participate are less likely to drop out. And SAT scores are 45 to 53 points higher for those who participate in activities than those who don't. That's pretty astounding, right? So we have lots of opportunities for kids to get involved. We currently have 21 sanctioned athletic teams. They're not all listed up there. You know most of them: track, football, volleyball, swimming, golf. We have 17 extra or co-curricular activities. That would include drama, robotics, orchestra, band, cheer, HOSA, DECA. And then I said we have unlimited 21st century clubs. And the reason why I said that is this: we really look for students to have ideas of clubs that they want to do. And then we go ahead and find people to work in those clubs. I just put some of the ones that we have currently there. So the first one I want to talk about tonight is esports. So you may remember, I think it was in the summer we came to you and said we were going to try esports, and we really rushed into it. John Stile and I met with some people. We found coaches. Dr. Murillo was very supportive and said, yes, let's try it. So the first season, they have 3 seasons a year for esports. The first season was the fall season. The game that they play competitively is Rainbow Six Siege. Please don't ask me any questions about that because I don't know what it is. We started with 12 computers. So we had 6 at TJ and 6 at AL, found space for them, put it all together, and we had varsity teams compete. That first season, we had over 70 kids try out for those spots. We quickly realized that we needed to expand this to be able to get more kids involved. With the help of Deb Robinson at AL, we bought more components for the computers. Her class, an IT class, a computer class, put the computers together for us. That was one of their projects. So for the winter season that just finished, that we gave awards to people, we had 24 computers, so 12 at each school. And when I say computers, they're the top-of-the-line gaming computers. John and I had no idea when we bought them that they were, but they are. And we had both varsity and JV competitive teams, and then we had a lot of people just coming. They're letting people come in and try it because we want to build programs just like you would any other sport. Spring season started this last week. Again, we have 24 computers, varsity and JV at both schools. So a little facts about esports. 75 students have participated. We had both schools had teams place at state, 5th place at AL, 3rd place at TJ, and you recognize those. And there are lots of college opportunities. I never thought I would say this, but there's opportunities for kids to go to college to play games. Western is one that just joined. We've had several of our players approached by colleges asking them to come and play. So the pictures here are our TJ state team. On the left, I just thought that was a cool shot because that's Rocket League. I do know Rocket League. On the right, they're actually playing at state there, which the unique thing about this is there's other teams around them. Most often the kids play and they have their centers at AL and TJ. They never have to leave because it's streamed or networked or whatever the term is that they would all be able to play against each other. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about girls wrestling. I know I sent a Friday note that said that the state approved the sanctioning of girls wrestling for the 22-23 school year. We have had participants in that, like I showed you the picture. There were several up there. We've decided that for next school year, we're going to have one team, just like we do for swimming currently. We want to build it to really have a solid team, with the ideas that in 3 to 5 years, we hopefully have a team at each middle school and a team at each high school, just like we do with our boys program. I'm happy to say that Matt Daniels and Mike Quas, Matt is a teacher at Kern and been a longtime wrestling coach within the district, and Mike is a teacher at TJ and has been a wrestling coach since he joined us a couple years ago, have been hired as co-head coaches. We thought it was important to have people that were in the buildings on both schools to be able to go and recruit and work with students. And they both interviewed very well and are excited to take off. We have a lot of work to do, but we're excited about it. Just some facts I'd like to share. In that club that you saw a picture of, there was 25 more, just a few over 25 in that club of girls that came and participated. We had 12 high school girls participate this last year. Now those are going and competing with you may have to compete against a boy. That was in boys wrestling season. So we had 7 in the middle picture. You could see the 7 AL girls there and 5 at TJ. I want to mention, before I say college opportunities, I want to mention that on the left is the club girls wrestling tournament in the state. 580 girls participated. So we're seeing it grow here. We think it will really grow. I mentioned college opportunities. One of our wrestlers from AL, Hannah, you see there from signing day, she actually signed a letter of intent to wrestle in college and is receiving some scholarship opportunities there. So plenty of opportunities. So now we talk about next steps, because we want to increase engagement. In order to do that, we have to recruit kids. When we recruit them and they come and they join us, we have to make sure that whatever activity that they're doing, it's engaging. They like doing it. And then we need to continue to expand. We wouldn't be able to do any of this without without those companies and people that you see up there. 21st Century does all the sports for clubs, helped with the robotics. The Office of Elementary and Secondary Education, we have a grant for out of school. It's called the Out of School Time Careers Pathway Grant. So they provide money. Vex Robotics, and then the associations you see, the Iowa High School Esports Association and the Girls Union and the Boys Union. I'll leave you with a little quote. The quality of life is determined by its activities, by Aristotle. We all hope when we go to school that we have fond memories, but I know I'm approaching 30 years out, and I know that when I think back about my high school days, a lot of the memories I have come from being in art club, come from playing football, being on the swim team, doing those things, building lifetime friendships. I still see the coaches. So really it's the activities that we do, and we hope that kids continue to do that throughout their lives. With that, I would answer any questions.
What name will the wrestling team be called?
I think right now we're just going, Council Bluffs Community School District Wrestling. I don't know that we'll have a mask. Some have asked about a mascot. We're meeting with the coaches again next week to really, and I'm sure we'll work with Diane's office to really determine that.
Thank you.
Is there going to be any kind of issues with male coaches and female athletes? Because it's wrestling. I mean, other sports, there isn't a lot of contact with the coaches, and wrestling, there is direct contact. What's our opinion on that?
Well, to be quite honest, we hope someday that we have all female wrestling coaches available to do it. With Nebraska just sanctioning it last year and then Iowa this year, there's not a lot of female wrestling coaches out there. So it's obviously they're teachers and they're people who have been doing it for a long time. You just have to be smart about what you're doing.
I just didn't know if we had concerned parents or if
I have not had
their
one.
kids want to go and they.
Yeah, I have not had one concerned parent, and it's really interesting because we have a lot of kids who are doing it in middle school where they have that flexibility to play multiple sports. So we'll see what happens in high school, because it's really going to be during basketball season is when the season is. Because I know I have a daughter who would love to wrestle, but basketball is her sport. She actually wrestled when she was younger, but so it'll be interesting to see what happens with some of those girls who are in clubs.
Quick question. I think this is great, and once you're involved, you're like the statistics show there. I guess my question is about transportation to some of these, right? So if wrestling is going to be on one site, how are we moving people back and forth? I know I had a couple people reach throughout the summer at the golf course say, hey, I would love to golf, but my child doesn't have transportation to get to and from practice or doesn't want to take their clubs. Is there a place? What are we doing to try to help with those types of situations to get kids more involved in those clubs or activities, teams that take place off school grounds?
Yeah, we get that question every year, and it's hard because, there's teams that practice right after school compared to those that practice at 5:30, and busing for those is really just not possible for all of them. But we do everything that we can with busing to make it available to them. We don't know for sure what the girls' wrestling will look like, if it'll be up, where it will be, if we'll switch sites or what, but if it's more after school, we're more likely able to provide the transportation. Does that mean if it's like right after school?
Any other questions?
So I do have a question, I guess. I know some of our programs allow students to be somewhat loosely monitored, and some require, like, that there's a teacher there all the whole time. Is there a guideline for schools? I do see some disparities where some programs could probably use more practice times, but they can't always get teacher there. Maybe it's after school hours, and other ones seem to have more freedom. Is there any guideline from the district on that, or is that individually within the schools to try to drive? I'm just thinking about how do you make sure we have the ability for our students to.
Yeah, it
I'm good.
varies.
Yeah.
Sports are a little different than others, but like with 21st century clubs, it's 15-1, and then after 15 students, there needs to be a second adult. So we've tried to stick pretty close to that with robotic, or with our esports program too. As it got bigger, we hired an assistant coach at TJ. AL, we're looking at still determining if we're going to do it this season or next season. So we really try to stick to that 15 or 20-1. But they
Okay, I
should
was
always be monitored by.
Just thinking about the amounts that we do pay our coaches, right? And I know some of the programs could really use a ton more time after hours, right? And a coach doesn't, those stipends for some of them are pretty puny versus the hours, and some are a bit more equitable. And so I don't know if there's things we as a district should be doing to drive,
Yeah. But I
ensuring
can,
we have coaches and they're paid for that time.
and I know that I asked Gary, Mr. Milborn, a year or so ago to do a study around what we pay our coaches in comparison to other schools. And I can also, I can look at, and some of the high schools raise dollars to add coaching to the staff, and then there's some that are voluntary. But it would be something that I would have to, when I first heard you talking about that, Mr. Arthur, I was thinking that you were talking about supervision. Some is not as tight as others, and I do think that AL would look differently from TJ because of being the TJAC and releasing kids to go back and get their stuff out of their lockers and stuff. So there may be some time where you see more students without supervision. And it can be something that we continue to look at, and I can ask principals to kind of check on that to make sure supervision is tight and that they have kind of like some processes and procedures in the school. And I would love to have more assistant coaches, especially let's just go golf. A lot of our students don't grow up playing golf. So in talking and spending time, one day I was with the golf coach at TJ, and he said sometimes it's the first time these children ever have a club in their hands. And so to have more than one coach would be wonderful out on the course. What we have done last year, one day at TJ, some of our teachers went out with the coach to the golf course, and they paired them up to provide additional support to those students. But I know that the resources, and also there's not a large number of students signing up for golf. So really it becomes, what do we do in middle school to recruit? I think the really great piece moving, and I'm focusing on TJ because it's a place I want to continue to grow it, having the new coaches that we're getting in place and moving a middle school AD down to the high school, that would have really great ideas of how to connect to the middle school to start growing that feeder is really going to be important to get the numbers up. And as the numbers get up, then we can look at maybe finding the means to add more coaches as we look at that. Excuse me, but I think it's something that it's building by building that we have to continue to dig into and look at. But I do worry about, tennis is another one. Some of our students never play competitive tennis till they get to high school. So I do think that it's something that we just got to continue to focus on. And if there is some concerns about supervision, then that's something we definitely want to address at the buildings.
Well, I also, think sometimes it is some of those groups that need more practice, need more time. I mean, there's some part, like you say, if you have kids who've never before done this and now they have a lot of time to make up.
Yes.
And do those kids have the ability to do that in the time frame? And we have numbers of different activities and sports going on all at the same time, vying for those kids' attention, right?
That's right.
And sometimes they're pulled multiple ones. But I do know that I think there's, like if, I don't know, I get in conversations all the time about, like how do we make some programs better? How do we, and, certainly it's supporting those youth ones as much as we can. But then I do think it is something about, maybe it's, knowing if that coach is going to be there with them for a couple hours a day. Is their stipend
Yeah,
relevant to that amount of time?
to the amount of time they put in.
Or do they
Correct.
put in the effort then, because the stipend's so small, maybe they do the minimum, I don't know. I
I agree.
just want to make sure we
Perfect.
give our kids, because if we're saying it's important, then, let's make it important.
Yeah, I agree. And once we get good coaches, we want to keep them.
Yeah.
And I have a question kind of related to what you discussed. Is there opportunities for students to kind of try an activity before they commit? And I guess, like you said, it would kind of allow them to catch up before they commit to being in, like, basketball, for example.
Yeah, we have,
Yeah.
both schools have lots of camps that they put on, with basketball camps where the coaches are there, or football camps, or really every sport does camps. And we're really trying to expand, especially in our 21st century schools, giving them the opportunity, because we can pay staff members to go down there and do that, to do golf and to do soccer and to do some of the volleyball, just to really give them an experience to see if they like it. So we try to do that. It's, like Troy said, the coaches, none of them would do it to get rich. All of them put in a lot of time and effort, and they do it for the love of the kids and the love of the game. So, but there are opportunities for people to try it out.
And is there similar ones for clubs and organizations?
I would say for some there are, like with the esports, like I said, we've only had a couple varsity teams, so really 12 people playing varsity, but we open up the area for other kids to come in and try it, knowing that, hey, maybe next year they're going to make a team and do it. So I would say the clubs they never push people out, and it's attendance, they want people there all the time, but it's not necessarily required.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. That concludes our presentations.
Okay. That brings us to the resolution portion of our agenda, and first is approval of the 2022-23 certified budget. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll move that the board approve the 2022-2023 certified budget with a levy rate of 16.25381 per $1,000 of property valuation.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this? Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
I've opened online voting here. Mr. Arthur,
Yes.
Mr. Kazire,
Yes.
Ms. Shudek,
Yes.
Ms. Myers,
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
Mr. Tripp,
Yes.
and Mr. LaFurla.
Yes, and the budget has been approved. Next, we have a resolution for teacher retention payments. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the payment of $1,000 to each of the 34 certified staff members not covered under Governor Reynolds' retention bonus initiative as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Or Dr. Murillo, maybe
Yeah,
a
does that
quick
need explaining?
explanation on this?
When the governor spoke in, I think, her State of the Union address, and she stated that she was going to give a bonus to the teachers. As we moved through the year, in March, we heard from the Department of Education that it was time to roll out those those bonuses. And as they began to talk through the process, they were listing teachers that had direct contact with students. And so in listing, there was some of our teachers that were not on that list because they didn't meet a set criteria that the state had established. And we felt that those teachers had really, and counselors, had really done a lot of good work during the pandemic and should be included. And the state was certainly okay with us adding them, and the state allowed us to make them a part of that, but it would be at our cost. And so I know that we spoke with you when we learned of this, and the board was certainly in favor of doing this. So now we have learned, Mr. Wilson, you can kind of talk about SBRC as kind of talked about. Now we can ask for spending authority for doing that. So that's why we're bringing that forward. This one and the next resolution that we're asking you to approve, it all kind of comes together. Mr. Wilson, you want to add to that?
No, I think you covered it. We had to submit exhibits, and they said, we need your board to approve the actual payment and then approve the SBRC request. And we said, okay, we'll do it at this meeting.
Perfect.
Sorry, and Dr. Merlo, it matches up, right? Because the teachers that got it from the governor had to pay the taxes, so we're doing that at the same rate, so everybody gets the same exact amount of money.
Yes, exactly the same. Thank you for
Fantastic.
asking that.
Thank you for the explanation. Any other questions or discussion? Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Ms. Shudek.
Yes.
Mr. Tripp.
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Ms. Myers.
Yes.
Mr. Arthur.
Yes.
Mr. Kazire.
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla.
Yes, and the motion carries. And next up is SBRC authority request for modified spending authority regarding the certified staff retention pay not covered under Governor Reynolds' initiative. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I can move the board request from the SBRC, $34,448 in modified supplemental amount for retention payments made to certified staff not paid under the governor's initiative as shown.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Explanation before. Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Mr. Arthur.
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Mr. Tripp.
Yes.
Ms. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Shudek.
Yes.
Mr. Kazire.
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla.
Yes, and the motion carries. Our last resolution for the evening is approval of the construction bid for the Early Learning Center. Is there a motion?
I'll motion to approve the Midwest DCM of Omaha, Nebraska as the low bid for the Early Learning Center project in the amount of $14,300,490 even, including alternates 3 and 5, 3 being heated floors for the infant toddler rooms, 5 being UV HVAC upgrades.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item?
Yeah, I guess I was disappointed to learn that while in the bidding process, we had said the use of OneSource, which is a technology that school districts and other companies use to monitor who's in on the different sites and the different buildings, make sure that they're covered by workman's comp, things of that nature, wasn't included in these bids. OPS uses this service. Ralston uses a service. It doesn't cost the district anything. It's on the contractor to pay for the service, and it's a very cheap service. And I just hope as a board, we go forward and make it a requirement in our contracts.
Thank you. Any other discussion, questions?
Yeah, just a quick, I was wondering if Mr. Kozire could explain what the UV upgrade entails.
Normal, UV is just the ultraviolet germicidal irradiation, so it usually is just a lamp that is inside that is in the duct system itself, so that any particulate microbial that passes through that kill zone, the DNA is scrambled, so it basically renders the microbes ineffective.
Any other discussion? We did receive, can't count them here, about 10 bids on the project. And we originally, I'm sorry?
bids.
4 bids. And this keeps refreshing here. What did our bid estimate? And our bid estimate was,
15.1 million.
Daryl, do you?
Yeah, I had,
Sorry.
we
My,
had allowance for the grading package and for the general bid package.
Move it to the microphone for me.
Yeah, the total of the budget that we had for the construction part of this project was $15,164,801.
okay,
So that, we're roughly about 860,000 under what we had estimated.
okay, good.
So that is
Thank you.
very good news.
Yeah.
Very good news.
And also, it's always a good guide when you look at bids, when you get 4 bids, 3 of them were quite close together, like 1%, which means they were probably all bidding the same thing. Same
Yeah.
numbers.
Thank you. Mr., did you have a question?
No, I was just
Okay.
saying, it's nice, that'll help with that change order that we have.
Yeah. Yeah. Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Mr. Tripp,
Yes.
Mr. Kazire,
Yes.
Mr. Arthur,
Yes.
Ms. Myers,
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
Ms. Hudak,
No.
and Mr. LaFurla.
Yes, and the motion has been approved. That concludes our business for the evening, but I wanted to mention before the board meeting, the board had a work session where we went through a long list of end-of-year activities that are intended to celebrate our students and their accomplishments throughout the year at all levels, elementary, middle school, and high school. And I want to thank all the district staff members who, working to put those events together and attend those events outside of the school day. It's a lot of time and energy and work, and I want them to know that we appreciate it. And I also want to thank the board members for making commitment to attend as many of those events as we possibly can and show our support for our schools. So thank you, and we are adjourned.
I know, it's like all of them. Yeah.